All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something truly fascinating and maybe a little bit terrifying. We're looking at how the dark, dystopian worlds imagined back in the mid-20th century have mapped almost perfectly onto our modern, hyper-connected digital lives. We'll explore how the science fiction of the past might actually just be our current reality, and more importantly, how we ended up here.
To kick things off, I want you to take a second and actually look at your smartphone. Just think about it. What if the massive invasive surveillance grids we read about in classic literature are actually something we voluntarily carry around in our pockets all day long? It's a pretty chilling thought, right? But to really figure out how we reached this point, we need to trace the roots of these ideas.
To understand our present, we've got to rewind a bit, back to the 1940s. Now, this was an incredibly turbulent era, defined by the devastation of World War II and the dawn of the Cold War. Crucially, it was a time that saw the rise of dictatorships completely built on mass propaganda, personality cults, and the systematic destruction of individual liberties.
And living right through all of this chaos was George Orwell. You know the name, but let's track his actual life for a second. Born in colonial India, Orwell actually served as an imperial police officer in Myanmar, which sparked a lifelong hatred of imperialism in him. Later on, he fought alongside democratic socialist militias in the Spanish Civil War, where he literally watched Stalin's agents betray his own comrades. That specific trauma forged his absolute hatred for totalitarianism, driving him to write Animal Farm in 1945 and his absolute masterpiece, 1984, in 1949.
So, in 1945, Orwell drops Animal Farm. On the surface, it looks like a simple children's fable, right? Kind of like Aesop's tales. But he was actually using it as a razor-sharp satire of the Russian Revolution. By turning complex political figures into farm animals, he brilliantly exposed the universal mechanics of how power corrupts. It was this incredible analytical weapon that absolutely anyone could read and understand.
Here's the basic setup. The animals are totally mistreated by their farmer, Mr. Jones. So, what do? They rebel. They launch a successful insurgency, kick the humans off the property, and rebrand the whole place as Animal Farm. Under the guidance of the elite pigs, they set up the rules of animalism, which are all anchored in one unshakable baseline. All animals are equal. Sounds amazing on paper, doesn't it?
But you probably know how this goes. The slide into tyranny happens incredibly fast. A power-hungry pig named Napoleon grabs absolute executive control using a pack of vicious attack dogs. He then uses his PR guy, a pig named Squealer, to quietly alter the rules to benefit the elite. Over time, that beautiful, noble baseline is twisted into a cynical joke. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
And the story ends with this really chilling scene. The elite pigs literally move into the farmer's house. They start walking on two legs, wearing clothes, and executing commercial contracts with humans over a few glasses of alcohol. The other animals are looking through the farmhouse window, and it dawns on them that they can no longer tell the pigs apart from the very human executives they originally overthrew.
Fast forward to 1949, Orwell takes this entire concept and just cranks the dial all the way up with 1984. He moves past the farm animals and builds a full-blown technocratic nightmare. This is a system that exercises absolute leverage not just over the physical bodies of its citizens, but deeply, deeply over their personal preferences and internal thoughts. The infrastructure of this control is just wild. You have the political apparatus operating under that famous, all-seeing Big Brother logo. Our main character, a low-level clerk named Winston Smith, is watched 24/7 by interactive wall-mounted telescreens that capture his every single gesture. And his day job? He sits there constantly rewriting historical news archives so that Big Brother's past predictions are never, ever proven wrong. Living under this crushing, continuous surveillance, Winston is desperate, and he commits the absolute worst crime possible in this world, a thought crime. He starts a journal, and he falls in love with his colleague, Julia. Inevitably, the thought police catch them. Winston is dragged away to be systematically, physically, and psychologically broken down.
It all bottoms out in Room 101. This is where Winston has to face his absolute, most primal fear: starving rats strapped directly to his face in a cage. Terrified, his spirit completely shatters. He betrays Julia, literally begging them to torture her instead. Stripped entirely of his individuality and his own internal data, Winston is re-educated until he genuinely loves Big Brother.
But you know, the deepest horror of Orwell's vision isn't even the physical torture. It's the total erasure of objective truth.
The state maintains its grip by constantly deleting historical records and literally vaporizing dissident actors who step out of line. I mean, completely erasing them from existence as if they were never even born. It all boils down to this one absolutely iconic quote. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. This beautifully and terrifyingly synthesizes how a totalitarian system locks down reality. If the state dictates the facts of yesterday, they get to completely control the reality of tomorrow. To pull off this massive level of control, the state engineers a brand new language called newspeak. The whole point of newspeak is to literally shrink the dictionary. They downsize the vocabulary so much that making a rebellious thought is structurally impossible. Think about it. If you literally lack the words to express a rebellion, you cannot formulate the rebellious thought in your own head.
And to keep people from losing their minds over all these contradictions, the system relies on something called doublethink. This forces citizens to simultaneously hold two completely contradictory beliefs and accept both of them as absolutely true. It is the only way a society can blindly swallow bizarre state slogans like war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. Okay, so take a breath. That brings us crashing right back into our world today, the 21st century. Orwell essentially handed us the definitive dictionary for analyzing modern power. Terms like Orwellian, Big Brother, Newspeak, and Thought Police, these are now the absolute standard ways we identify state or corporate overreach today. Which leads us to the biggest question of this whole explainer. Is Big Brother already here? Let's take a hard look at our own society and ask whether the technocentric nightmare of 1984 has actually materialized, maybe just hiding in plain sight.
Just look at how these concepts map onto the tech we use every single day. Telescreens? Well, they operate almost exactly like our smartphones and smart home speakers, tracking our locations and listening in. The historical rewriting engine of the Ministry of Truth, that operates at the blinding speed of modern web algorithms, pushing fake news and ideological revisionism. And the collective hysteria of Orwell's 2 minutes hate, cancel culture and social media mobs act as its exact modern equivalent, destroying reputations in the blink of an eye for algorithmic purity.
But honestly, here is the craziest, most chilling difference between Orwell's book and our reality. We didn't need a giant, scary, totalitarian superstate to force all this surveillance on us. We actually embraced it voluntarily. We bought the devices, we eagerly clicked accept on the terms of service without reading a single word, and we invited Big Brother right into our living rooms.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. If we're the ones willingly buying the telescreens and fueling these algorithms, how do we stop the slide into total control? If we are literally the architects of our own surveillance grids, how do we step back, reclaim our individual freedom, and protect our own private thoughts? It's a huge question, and one we all need to answer before the choice is no longer ours to make.